This is our last chapter, guys. Welcome back. And last but not least, in this chapter, we are going to talk about employment communications. Yes, employment communications. There's a lot for us to cover here. We're going to talk about understanding the principles of professional networking, identifying our key selling points for job application process. We're going to talk about evaluating the primary needs of employers for positions of interest. We're going to set up the message structure for resumes and cover letters. And we're going to highlight our qualifications with effective tone, style, and design. And we're going to create chronological and functional resumes to highlight our key selling points. We're going to use LinkedIn as part of the job search process and to network professionally. And we're going to develop a list of references that would improve our employment prospects. And finally, we're going to compose effective cover letters that highlight our key selling points. So, wow, we have a lot to cover. Are you ready? Are you ready to get started on this? I know you've been waiting on this, even though this is the last chapter. Sometimes I'll push this forward in the beginning to some people because I think it's an excellent chapter and it's something for them to think about as they go. I know the author put it as the last chapter of the book, but sometimes it's almost to me like the first or second chapter of the book. All right? Because it gives us more to think about as we're doing things, as we're going through the tax and learning experience on the particular subject that we happen to be learning at that moment. And so, with that said, I am going to share my monitor. All right, so let's get started. Again, what are we doing? I'm going to repeat these because I think they bear repeating. We're going to understand principles of professional networking. We're going to identify our key selling points for job application process. And we're going to learn how to evaluate the primary needs of employers for positions of interest. And we're going to set up the message structure for resumes and cover letters. And we're also going to highlight our qualifications with effective tone, style, and design. And we're going to create chronological and functional resumes to highlight our key selling points. We're going to use LinkedIn as part of our job search process and to network professionally. And we're also going to develop a list of references that will improve our employment prospects. Then we're going to choose effective cover letters to highlight our key selling points. Next, we'll review our job application documents for effectiveness and fairness, and we'll develop strategies for responding to common job interview questions. We'll explain etiquette for following up after job interviews, and we'll explain etiquette for leaving an organization with grace and foresight. Here we go. Networking for professional success. So, a proactive approach to building professional relationships is networking. It helps us to, as well as others, and it provides benefits for our own professional development. It's rational, it's relational, and it's not transactional. It's all about the relationship and not about how many we know. It's about building the right relationships. So, conducting informational interviews. What are your key daily activities in these positions? What do you enjoy most about this position? And how did you get this position? What are some of the qualifications for these positions? So, these are some of the questions you may want to ask if you were doing a informational interview with someone that you may be thinking about getting into that company one day. All right. And I do this, I may give a phone call to a company or a person that I find on LinkedIn and say, hey, I just like to do a quick informational interview with you for school project or just so that I can know from my clients or things of that nature. So you got to find the thing that's truthful and use that to get in the door for those informational video interviews. All right. So you conduct the informational interviews. You want a typical career path in your area of expertise, in your company, or in your industry. Now, how do you continue to grow and learn in your area of expertise? What sources of information do you use? And do you recommend any books? These are questions that you want to ask in your informational interviews. Now, what advice would you give someone like me who's just starting a career? Great questions, guys. Now, there's some other ways we can network as well. And we can attend job fairs and other career networking events. We can attend campus speeches and other professional development events. We can join job clubs and other professional interest groups, or we can volunteer at a local nonprofit. Nonprofit work is great. I met a lot of great women during my time with United Way and Georgia CASA, as well as Georgia BLN and the United States BLN. Applying the AIM planning process for resumes and cover letters. So identifying your key selling points. Evaluate your career ambitions and qualifications. Now, this helps you frame your resume and cover letter to project your career hopes. It also helps you evaluate how well your abilities and attributes prepare you for the desired career. Identify your abilities and your attributes. Now, here's a self-inventory of career interests and dot-related abilities and attributes. My career goals for this particular example states that to act in a leadership role to develop and market financial services for credit unions. In 5 to 10 years, to hold an influential marketing position within a credit union group. My strongest professional abilities include developing strong professional relationships with clients and vendors, attracting new members to credit unions through referrals, seminars, mailings, online social media, social networking, and then organizing members to participate in credit union sponsored financial workshops and community events. My strongest professional attributes includes trusted and reliable on important campaigns, innovative and creative in approach to marketing and promotions, and passionate about the credit union industry. Areas where I need to improve, everybody needs to improve somewhere, so remember that. Conducting customer surveys, statistical analysis, and survey reporting. Earning a reputation for excellence outside of my local community. So let's look at this. Ability, skills, and knowledge. So competence, task. Function specific, marketing, finance, company, industry, technology, analysis, research. Caring, relationships, communication, interpersonal, teamwork, emotional intelligence, leadership, intercultural, character, which is values, familiarity with the corporate culture and values, dedication to the success of the company, and knowledge of the business ethics. Now look at abilities, attributes, and that establish credibility. Here's some attributes: competence. Here's some words that establish that from a task perspective. Caring, relationships, here's that, and character, accountable. So knowing the difference between what are competencies, what are things that show caring and relationships, and what are things that show values and character, these are very important. These words are those words that establish that. So understand the needs of your potential employers. Completing a thorough job search process. Use your resources. Apply for the jobs that are good fits for you. Contact professional organizations and websites to learn more about your options, all right? Understand the needs of your potential employers. Analyze the needs of potential employers. Carefully read and analyze the job position announcement. Group the request and the announcement in terms of abilities and attributes. Decide whether you match these criteria. Frame your resume and cover letter to highlight these abilities and attributes. If possible, contact a company representative. Develop your message for your resume and cover letter. So resume sections, name block, summary or objective, education, work experience, and employment history, as well as any additional information like clubs or committees or nonprofits that you work on. So here are the principles of getting the tone, style, and design right for resumes and cover letters. So emphasize accomplishments with action verbs. Quantify accomplishments where possible, meaning add numbers. Position your most important contributions first. Remove irrelevant details. Avoid buzzwords, and jargon. Be exact and avoid any errors. Group and label information to improve ease of reading, format to distinguish pieces of the information, and select simple yet visually appealing layout. And we'll talk more about those in class. Emphasize accomplishments with action verbs. Without exaggerating, choose verbs that make your key abilities and attributes jump off the page. Avoid verbs that undersell your abilities and attributes and stay in the present tense. So here are some examples. See, that is not good. So let's look at the first one. Responsible for marketing efforts of younger members. Instead, developed and ran marketing campaigns targeting young professionals and university students that resulted in approximately 55 new members in the past year. So you started strong. You started with an action verb. Answered phones, no. Greeted clients and scheduled appointments in person and by phone. Less effective. Kept track of tanning products. More effective, took inventory of all items sold in the store. That says more. Supervise other tellers in the teller department. Instead, supervise 6 tellers. You need to quantify. Responsible for the overall action. In charge of and here's a less effective, another one. In charge of effort to support local breast cancer awareness event. And organize, here's a better one, organize a group of 83 members to participate in a local breast cancer walkathon. Do you see the difference these are just more advantageous, it gives more concrete, there's more information in these. So positioning most important contributions first. Greeted clients and scheduled appointments in person and by phone, assisted with purchasing. You see that? And now I want you to go down and I'm going to show you this. Manage financial bookkeeping for the company using QuickBooks. That's more important. Assisted with purchasing medical supplies and processing of client orders. Greeted clients. Greeting clients is less important. And unless you're going for a clerical position or a greeter position, you don't want to put that first. Removing unnecessary details. Community activities and accomplishments. This is less effective. So, more effective, professional associations and community activities. You see that? Community activities and accomplishments versus professional association and community activities. Avoiding cliches. The credit union marketing specialist position you posted is my dream job. Really? It's me-centered and naive. My successes in attracting new credit union members would translate well into the requirements of the credit union marketing specialist position. I'm eager to speak with you by phone or in person to learn more about the position and explain how I can contribute. So how many typos in resumes does it take to you to decide, for them to decide whether you get the job or the position? It only takes one. Responses from senior financial executives show 1 typo, 2 typos, 3 typos, 4 or more. So 1 typo and 2 typos. So what's the moral of the story? No typos. Proofreading for typos and misspellings. Increase, so you just on an example of the board, increase the morale of the unit and gain insight into managing frontline employees versus increase the morale of the unit and gain insight into managing frontline employees. Grouping and labeling to highlight the employment narrative. And so here are some things under grouping. So take a pause and look at this. You see like things that are put together instead of all over the place. More on grouping and labeling, you want to look at this as well. Formatting to distinguish key pieces of the information. So work experience. So when there's something different, you want to bold that and then put those things under that. So chronological and functional resumes. A chronological resume is information grouped by work and education over time, whereas a functional resume is information presented in terms of key skills. So which do you want to provide? Work and education, or that provided by things that you've done over time? So using LinkedIn strategically. LinkedIn profile serves as a supplement to the materials you provide to a prospective employer on LinkedIn. Many of your professional contacts, colleagues, partners, clients, customers, and others will check your profile to learn more about you, and this is true. An elaborate version of your, elaborate version of your resumes, Tips: provide professional photo. Some people don't. But I don't think they get looked at as much if you don't provide the photo. Create a personalized URL. Complete the summary space. Use multimedia and choose sections wisely. Manage your recommendations and endorsements strategically. Build a network of important connections. Show some personality and be positive, guys. Maintain a giver mentality and stay active on LinkedIn. I'm there every day. Develop reference lists. Develop relationships with potential references over time. Contact your references ahead of time. Thank your references and complete a consistently formatted, well-detailed reference list. And another thing on references. Some references will come, some companies will ask for a reference that the person write the reference, especially for certain jobs you're applying for, like schools and things of that nature. You want to make sure that you contact your references and you work with them on these reference letters. A lot of people don't have time to write a reference letter. They let alone have time to do the checkoffs. So contact your references before doing the references. Cover letters often forms the first impression. Clearly identify the position you're applying for. Be focused and concise. So a confident and enthusiastic tone throughout or displaying arrogance. Don't exaggerate and display arrogance where possible. Tailor your cover letter to the job posting and the needs of the employer. Adapt for unsolicited letters. Components of a cover letter include interest in the position, match with the position, and call to action. So review tips. Make sure every element of your job application correctly portrays your abilities and your attributes. Get others' opinions. Dress for the job interview and pay attention to etiquette. So when you're acing this job interview, here's what you have to do. You dress up, err on the conservative side, and dress in colors, meaning black and blues and gray. Stick with that, black, blue, or gray. No reds, no yellows, no pinks, none of that. Don't over accessorize. You just want some pearl earrings or some small studded diamond earrings, no loops, none of that. Lipstick should be a neutral color, no reds like I have on. You don't want that for an interview. Looks great on presentations, but not on interviews. Greet those you meet with handshakes and enthusiasm. You always want to respond effectively to your interview questions, respond to questions strategically and confidently and concisely. Be perceptive about what hiring managers are evaluating. Tell success stories. Use the STAR method, which means situation, task, action, and results. That's the STAR method. Avoid criticizing your former organization, supervisors, or colleagues, and ask questions, guys. So common job interview questions for entry-level positions include introduction questions. Tell me about yourself. How was your flight here? Did you find this office easily? How was your flight here? How do you like living in blank? Educating and training. Why did you choose your school? Why did you choose your major? What was your favorite part of the program? Least favorable? And knowledge and company and industry. What do you know about your company, our company? What do you think are some of the main business challenges? How can you help? What trends do you see in the industry? Work experience. How did you get your last job? Why did you leave your last job? Have you ever been fired? What did you like best about your last job? Now, with this, I think this exercise is great for anyone. I want you to take time, take the questions from this slide, and I want you to get out a Word document, put the questions down, and answer them. Every one of these questions, answer them, and then we'll talk about them. Approaches to work goals and successes. Why did you apply for this job? What are you looking for in a job? What will you be, how will you be successful in this position? What were some of the tough decisions you had to make at your last job? What are the best accomplishments? Tell me about a project you worked on in your most recent job, How did you contribute to its success? Can you tell me about a difficult situation you encountered at work? How did you respond? How did you get your team to work effectively? Can you tell me about a situation where you had to work under pressure and deal with deadlines? Answering these questions now, it puts it in your memory bank and makes it easier for you to discuss them later. They might not ask you any of these or one or two of these questions, but at least they're already in your mindset. Personal attributes example. What are your strengths and weaknesses? What would your current boss say are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? Are you creative, hardworking, ambitious? What have you learned from your past jobs? Interpersonal team management and leadership skills. What types of people do you like to work with? What types of people do you think are most difficult to work with? What is your leadership and management style? Do you have top management potential? How well do you work in teams? What is your communication style and when working with others? Have you had to make an unpopular decision or announcement? How did that go? So here are some examples. Tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a recent graduate with a degree in finance. I also minored in event management. I have worked for a credit union for the last 5 years. I started out as a teller and moved from there. Prior to working at the credit union, I worked at a medical supplies company and tanning salon. Outside of that, I've been heavily involved in sports my whole life, and that brings me right up until now, ready to move into a new position. Mm. This response is factual, but does not directly lead into a coherent, inspiring account of Hunt's selling points. So here goes a more effective way of tell me about yourself. About 5 years ago, I took the position as a teller at a credit union. I found that I really loved the credit union approach to providing financial services. Within months, I realized that this was a career direction for me. I was fairly quickly promoted into other positions, first as a teller supervisor, and then as a loan officer and marketing specialist. While working at the credit union, I also went to Florida State University, where I majored in finance and minored in event management. I focused all of my studies on my deep interest in marketing financial services for credit unions. One reason I'm so intrigued by the position is that it combines several of my key interests. Now, this statement captures Hunt's background naturally, describes several of her selling points, and ties her selling points to the needs of the position. At 115 words, this statement would take roughly 45 seconds to a minute to state. Here's another example, less effective example. It looks like you just graduated. Tell me about the university experience. Well, I had a great time in school. I had a great professors at all the way through my program in finance. I made great friends. One of the most exciting parts of my schooling was studying in Dubai for a semester, which really opened my eyes to the world. The only part I didn't like about school was the pressure of working full time for most of my 4 years and also studying on the side. But I think I grew a lot from that experience. Now, guys, this response provides a general overview of her experience, but fails to provide a sense that she was pursuing a set of goals. The response does not contain selling points. Now, here is a more effective way of doing this. It looks like you just graduated. Tell me about your university experience. Going to Florida State University was a great experience and helped me improve my skills in marketing financial services. Early on in my finance program, I took a variety of classes about banking and investments that helped me to think about financial services we could offer at Better Horizons. Also, I used a lot of what I learned in my event management minor to think about events we could run at the credit union. I think my favorite semester was when I was abroad in Dubai. I was fascinated to see that the business in that country are using so many creative and innovative approaches to event marketing. I tried to use some of those techniques I saw in Dubai at Better Horizons. Now, this response ties her university experiences into her professional goals and accomplishments. It highlights her key selling points and shows her goal directed approach to work. Now, here's another one, guys, and I'm reading these because I want you to see the differences this makes. What do you want to leave? Why do you want to leave your current job? Why do you want to leave your current job? Well, my job at Better Horizon Credit Union has given me so many opportunities, but I'm often frustrated with the conservative approach that our board has taken to developing new services. My immediate supervisor usually agrees with my ideas, but she understands that the board would not approve or post our most ambitious ideas. So she falls in line. Better Horizons has been a great learning experience, but I'm simply ready to move on to a more ambitious work environment. Well, by stating her displeasure with the board and the less than ambitious work culture, she makes a risky statement. Some hiring managers were worried that she does not work well with others. Here's a better way of putting that. Now, what are your thoughts? Why do you want to leave your current job? Leaving Better Horizons will not be easy for me. I've enjoyed working closely with so many of my colleagues, and getting to know the community has been wonderful. Last year, when I helped run our campaign that brought in so many younger members, I realized I wanted to be part of a larger credit union network in a position where I could spend more of my time developing marketing events and facilitating coordinations between branches. I think this is a very this I think this is where my strengths lie, and as far as I can tell, would be a good match for your position. Now, by focusing on the satisfying aspects of the position she intends to lead, she is more likely to give the impression that she is committed to team-oriented employee and a team-oriented employee. She sets her response into needs of the current position. And so here's another example here, how well she works with teams. And here's a better example of how she could work with teams. Less, do you have management experience? She can talk about it this way. And people have, I'm going to stop on this one for a minute because a lot of people will say, no, I don't have any management experience. Here's a good way of talking about this. Do you have management experience? And what is your approach to managing others? Yes, at Better Horizons, I managed the teller department and had a variety of marketing campaigns that required bringing together the ideas and responses of credit union employees and members. I have been most successful when I follow several principles. First, I think it's important to set a vision and articulate the big goals. Second, I think it's critical to get everyone's ideas about how to achieve the goals. Finally, I think you have to find ways to gain buy-in and create incentives for others to engage into the goals. Here's how I did this with our mailing campaign to attract more members to the company. Now, this response answers the question and also transitions her selling points. So here's some others, and I'm please read through these and see how you can craft your messaging. And that's why I say it's extremely important that you go ahead and use this approach now by taking a lot of the interview questions, doing this one time and really getting it out there, having a document that contains the questions that you most likely be asked and putting them in a document and then balancing it or checking it against some of the things we're discussing here in chapter 16 to make your employment seeking opportunities and interview opportunities better. So please read through all of these. Here are some actions you took that led to outcome results that occurred. And so you want to look at all of these. Please, I'm not going to read through these right now, and we can talk about these in our coffee and conversation. But I want you to make sure that you take time to read through each of these. And I have another exercise that we're going to go through where we'll discuss this. So I do want you to make sure that you go through and go back to the other slides that we talked about with all the questions and prepare those. I want to get your resume done and I want to see that. And so we got a lot of work to do. So I want you to work on those things. All right. And so in acing the job interview, succeed in web conference interviews. You do several trial runs first with others. Make sure your profile for the web conference software creates the right impressions. Look professional, tidy your room or office. Smile and express yourself non-verbally. Use notes strategically. Avoid distractions and send thank you notes after the interview. Follow up by sending that note of appreciation. Be brief and genuine, express goodwill and your interest in the position, and you can use email or handwritten note in this particular situation. Follow up with the interviewer later, 1 to 2 weeks later, via email is most preferred. And here's examples of a great thank you note. All right. So take a look at that and take a stab at writing a thank you note yourself. And you see how this person left their email, their online resume, LinkedIn and their LinkedIn profile. All right. These are all great assets. Leaving an organization, inform your supervisor that you're leaving immediately, preferably in person. You may be required to write a formal resignation. All right. And that's it for chapter 16. It's big, and that's it for the learning material we'll be going through. I want you to make sure that you go back and you enter those questions that we talked about earlier. I think they're very important for us to understand on the interview process. There is a lot of things that we need to talk about, like the thank you notes and all of that. This has been a great way for us to get acclimated into that interview process, even if we've had some experience. Some of us have been at the market for a while, and we need to always touch base back and review that document that I asked you to create on where you put in your questions and the answers to those about who you are, what have been your accomplishments. And another note I want to say to you, once a year, you should always update your resume once a year. There are so many changes happening in companies all around that we always want to make sure that we're updating that resume once a year with our skill sets and all and the credibility. And the last thing I'll leave with this is you always want to, if your supervisor or manager is not giving you monthly one-on-ones, you want to make sure that once a month you're sending an email to your manager or supervisor on things that you have accomplished for that month. Just, you can name it my monthly check-in and just put that monthly check-in documentation in there. That's it. I hope you have enjoyed working with me and on this course. And I look so forward to working with you on other courses as well. And please link in with me, and I'd love to keep in contact and touch base with you. Take care. Bye-bye. See you in Coffee and Conversations.